can conjure up with super noodles, because in 4 minutes they twist up into something irresistible. Kellogg's Super Noodles at a super twist of mealtimes.
What is this sound? Is it a thunderstorm? Is it an avalanche? Or is it a new crackly buttery milk chocolate dime bar? No, it's an avalanche.
When you're choosing a savings scheme, it's important to choose the right one. That's why Midland Bank has a wide range of schemes, some offering extra interest, so you can get what you want, the way you want it. Midland Savings.
Come and talk to the listening bank.
Come and do the dip, dip into the taste of waistline. Salad tastes so bright, the taste is pure delight. Dip into the taste, lovely for your waist.
Waistline.
Dip into the taste of waistline. Do the dip.
You and Cross and Blackwell make tastier meals.
This is my plug for breakfast TV. And it works. And this is my plug for Kellogg's Cornflakes. And it works. And this is a plug for me. It
You might have thought houses in Milton Keynes are all the same. Well, they are all within easy reach of London. They are all close to wide open countryside. And they do all cost about 20% less than in other areas handy for London. But that's where the similarities end. Find out more about a home in Milton Keynes. Ring the operator and ask for free phone 3855.
Some people imagine the Royal Mail only carries smaller, lighter parcels. Not so. All the things you're watching can, properly packed, be sent by Royal Mail. And they weigh right up to 22.5 kilograms. The Royal Mail carries more weight.
Braun announced a kitchen revolution. The new multi-practic hand blender. It waltzes through blending. Any amount, anywhere. The versatile multi-practic hand blender. One of the new Braun multi-practic family.
At Pontin's, free offers last all summer. Children can go free, and there are free offers on self-catering too. Isn't it time you booked?
It's the age of the train. Quicker by tube and cheaper by bus, at least for most people.
I'll show you some of the problems.
Buses are out. Taxis are very expensive and even then very difficult. Did you know wheelchairs are banned from many underground stations? Those that can be used are usually inaccessible because of escalators or stairs.
For disabled people, the spontaneity of travel disappears.
If you're a disabled person, the Greater London Association for Disabled People wants to know about your transport problems and about transport schemes in your area. Ring us now on 928-5656 and we'll send you a questionnaire and information on existing transport schemes. That's 928-5656.
On which television programme could you find the famous and the fascinating for breakfast? On Good Morning Britain, of course. So join us every day on your ITV1 button. Good Morning Britain.
The
bust of Lenin Guards at Town Hall, which is the most talked about in London. These are the councillors who've been accused of banning Irish jokes and fox hunting and of inviting in the IRA. But is Islington Council just the victim of a smear campaign? Every month, a small ceremony takes place at Islington Town Hall. A member of the council's staff climbs up to the roof and raises the red flag over the borough. The ceremony dates back to May, when Labour swept back to power in the council elections. Almost their first act was to order the flying of the flag. It was a signal to the people of Islington that a new era of radical socialism was beginning. Raising the flag received a lot of publicity, and since then hardly a week's gone by without a story involving Islington Council hitting the headlines. The new councillors have become the butts and bogeymen of the popular press.
Bananas Republic.
It's the place where they put a welcome on the mat for squatters and gays get grants, where Little Black Sambo is banned from the children's library and dustmen do their boozing on the rates.
Now rates pay for lesbian self-defence.
The grant is among 21 handouts from Islington Council's Women's Committee. Others include £1,600 to the Islington Under-5s Action Group for a
Sexism and Under-5s workshop.
And to pay for the production of
non-sexist jigsaws.
The borough has been caricatured as the Soviet Socialist Republic of Islington. All of this is terribly unfair on Marx and on genuine Soviets.
Islington is an adventure playground for polytechnic lecturers, middle-class trendies, new left activists, and similarly socially disadvantaged people.
Council wants gays to work with young kids.
Could any satirist, however rich in imagination, hope to match the wantonly irresponsible performance of Islington Council?
The mad, 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 mad world of Islington.
The coverage that the Islington councillors have had from the press has been, from their point of view, little short of disastrous, and they now have the reputation of being a bunch of Marxist crackpots. But is this really the case? Well, the press has often been unfair. Little Black Sambo has not been banned, and dustmen don't do their boozing on the rates. But distortion by the newspapers can't be the sole reason why Islington has gained the reputation it has. Clearly, what the council is actually doing is a critical factor. For Islington is now run by a group of councillors who are determined to use their position to put over policies which have hardly been raised in town halls before. What's more, this group is remarkably united. There's little disagreement about policy. This unanimity is a far cry from the political upheavals which have split the local Labour Party in recent years. Islington Council has been dominated by the Labour Party for the last 60 years. In the late 70s, there was a bitter struggle between the left and right in the party, which resulted in more than 20 right-wing councillors defecting en masse to the SDP, thus helping the Social Democrats to take control of the council. After the departure of the old guard, Islington Labour Party was totally dominated by the left.
Therefore, I move the motion.
So it was inevitable that the candidates who were selected to stand in the council elections should reflect this dominance. And as almost all the candidates were from the left, there was little prospect of internal opposition to argue over policy. As it turned out, there was hardly any external opposition either. Labour smashed the SDP in the election, winning 51 out of the 52 seats. Chris Goodall is deputy editor of the Islington Gazette and is also a Labour councillor in his hometown of Reading. He believes that the lack of internal or external opposition has been a significant influence on the style of the council.
The mass defections from the Labour group to the SDP had a quite devastating effect on the character of the new Labour group elected last year. They were way to the left. There were very few moderates left to say, hold on a minute, isn't that a bit silly? Shouldn't we do it this way? There was no restraining influence, no restraining forces, and of course there wasn't an opposition to force them to concentrate on the policy issues.
The policy issues that the new council has tackled were set out in Labour's manifesto. This made it clear that while the new councillors would deal with familiar issues like housing, they also wanted to break out into new areas. One initiative was to give a higher priority to the needs of groups like women, blacks and gays. Bob Crossman is a gay rights activist who served on a working party which determined the new policy of the council towards gays.
And there are a number of gay men and lesbians I know in the party who are very keen that we should in fact have this commitment to gay rights. So it was included as a specific commitment in the section that talked about participation involving the whole community. It was also included in the sections on housing and social services. So it was there central. And because of the way the party's changed, and the party now wants councillors to be actually accountable to the manifesto and actually do something about it, then the next council was committed to doing something about gay rights.
Last May, Bob Crossman was himself elected a councillor, and he now monitors how the new policy on gays is being implemented, particularly over housing.
We've got a low priority route into housing called the Young Couples Scheme. And we've now explicitly said that if people regard themselves as couples and have lived together for quite a period, then they can apply to be housed under that.
Right, can we make a start, please?
In the last year, Islington's Housing Committee has made it easier for gays to get council accommodation. The committee's also pledged to give a better service to blacks and women. Milton Babulel chairs the Race Committee, which aims to get a better deal for the borough's black people. Maureen Lee heads the newly created Women's Committee, which is vastly increasing grants to women's groups. The new councillors are proud of these policies. Their leader is Margaret Hodge.
We have come in as a council committed to equal opportunities. And we have, for example, got a gay and lesbian working party which is looking at the problems faced by gays and lesbians in our community. And that is right. I believe that to be the right way forward.
The popular press, which has kept a close eye on Islington Council, has reported all of these initiatives in lurid and sometimes inaccurate detail. Many local people don't seem to have liked what they've read.
Well, I mean, all these gays and... OK, you know, they are, but why should we have to pay out of their money?
Gay centre, gay teachers. Ridiculous.
Spend their bleeding money in the wrong place, the queers and all that, which is all wrong.
Some observers feel that this reaction would not have been so strong if the council had taken more trouble to explain their policy.
Perverts, mate.
Unfortunately, I fear they have gone about it in the wrong way, in that they have failed to take account of some of the prejudices of the people of Islington, the Labour voters who put them there. And if I may take gay rights as an example, instead of explaining their policy, explaining what they're trying to do, they have bulldozed ahead in a rather insensitive fashion, criticising anybody who's dared to come out against what they're trying to do and calling them prejudiced.
Works at Sir Street.
Catering for minorities is not the only expression of the Islington councillors' radically different view of how a council should operate. For these politicians believe they should campaign on national and international issues over which they have no control. They're intent on changing the whole political climate. One of the new councillors is a bus driver called Victor McGeer. He believes that local government is not simply about building houses and collecting rubbish. And his view that the council should be used as a political platform is one view that's widely held in his party.
Many people criticise us for making pronouncements and joining in various campaigns on matters that they say, well, it's got nothing to do with the council. It's things such as Ireland. one has to see the development in the Labour Party in a political way. And it's reflected in the way in which local government's changing. People are political people within the Labour Party, and they are political people in the widest sense, and they campaign on a range of issues. And so that when we're in local government, we can feel free to make our feelings known on a particular issue, to join in a particular national campaign.
This councillor, Chief Whip Alan Clinton, was behind the raising of the most controversial issue, Northern Ireland. He wanted the council to debate it in an effort to promote a wider public discussion of the problem and the solution which he advocates, the withdrawal of British troops.
There are certain issues we feel we should make a stand on. In particular, as elected representatives of a large Irish community, we feel we should make a stand on Irish issues. We put forward a resolution which dealt with a large number of important matters to do with Ireland, and we felt that this was part of our duty.
So last December, the council passed a motion in this chamber calling for rubber bullets to be banned, the Prevention of Terrorism Act to be repealed, and the withdrawal of British troops. The motion then added,
"We condemn the insulting stereotypes and racist jokes to be found in literature on sale in the borough. This vilification makes it difficult for people of Irish origin to take pride in their Irishness."
In many Labour groups, this part of the motion would have been the subject of careful debate. In Islington, where there's no internal opposition, no one objected. The councillors did realise they were courting criticism by discussing Ireland. What they hadn't bargained for was ridicule.
It was a Wednesday back in December when everything changed in the borough of Islington, the 22nd to be precise. That was the day the council decided people should stop telling Irish jokes. Word soon got around.
No, we're not allowed to tell Irish jokes in Islington.
You're not allowed to tell Irish jokes?
No, we've been told by the council. It's one of the council rules.
How about Jewish jokes?
Jewish jokes, you can only tell them on a Saturday.
Don Hoodless, a former left-wing leader of Islington Council, believes that the council's handling of this issue was inept.
I think on Ireland, they have actually lost the argument before they started with the resolution about Irish jokes. And they are now not really taken seriously. I think that followed up with the resolution about, the Troops Out movement and using the town hall. Has actually done a lot to put local opinion, if not national opinion, against them. And I think it was a serious mistake. And again, they've really got to raise sensitive issues like that. Got to prepare their ground rather better, argue the case more firmly, and actually get their own act together, which I'm certain they didn't do on that.
In response to such criticism, the new council leader, Margaret Hodge, blames the media.
I think that what has happened is that in the same way as Camden in the early 70s, followed by Lambeth, followed by the GLC, and now the London Borough of Islington, the media try and find a focus of an authority whom they can attack, particularly the Tory media. I mean, the attacks have been largely through the Tory press. And I honestly think that there have been distortions in the media which have led to the allegation of mishandling those issues.
But while councillors understandably complain about unfair treatment by the press, they've hardly gone out of their way to encourage good publicity. 2 years ago, the Islington Gazette, the borough's weekly paper, became involved in a trade union dispute. As a result, the local Labour Party blacked the Gazette. Even though the dispute was settled long ago, the council's Labour group still refused to talk to the Gazette. This official embargo has been publicly broken by only one Labour councillor.
Islington Gazette?
She's Anne Page, who wrote to the Gazette last autumn to correct a story concerning her. For this, she was formally censured by the Labour group. In fury, Mrs. Page wrote to the leader of the council, Mrs. Margaret Hodge.
You find my action
inexcusable
and
damaging.
You will propose my suspension from the group if I
indulge in any further breaches of group policy.
You trust I will,
in future, take a more responsible and less individualistic attitude.
I say bollocks.
I think the boycott of the Gazette has been the single most misguided thing that this council has entertained. since taking office last May. There was no industrial dispute any longer at the Gazette, which provided some justification for Labour solidarity action. And to deliberately deny yourselves the opportunity to communicate with the people of the borough who have elected you and who are the absolutely prime interested people is foolish.
What he was informed, in fact.
Most of Anne Page's colleagues don't feel the boycott is harming the council. Margaret Hodge believes that Labour councillors would be under attack whether they talk to the Gazette or not.
The Gazette has always honestly distorted and biased what the council is doing. They are always looking for the dirty stories rather than true stories of where they could properly criticise this council. I don't think that will alter whether or not we, in fact, give quotes to the Gazette.
But the experience of Don Hoodless, Mrs Hodge's predecessor as Labour leader, is that it is easy for a Labour council to get good publicity from the local press.
Journalists don't get out and do much work, and if you're actually prepared to feed them stories and ring them up and talk to them, your views will actually get in the paper. And what is required is for people to actually go and talk and go and argue and go and contribute. And in that way, you get a better press, and it's that sort of work that's got to be done. And certainly when we were developing Islington services during the 1970s, we consistently had a reasonably good press because we were prepared to do that.
The Labour Council believes the boycott of the Gazette has not been harmful, but it certainly has allowed their political opponents to seize the initiative. The SDP has shown no reluctance to use the local paper, and not surprisingly, they've concentrated their attack on the controversial new policies which the council is pursuing. This has meant that in the political propaganda war, it appears to be the opposition which is winning. A remarkable feat this, given that the opposition is one man.
When David Hyams, a Labour councillor who defected to the SDP 2 years ago, was elected the only member of the opposition last May, he was put in a very difficult situation.
My position on council as a lone opposition councillor would have been almost impossible if this had been a sane and rational council, if left-wing radical. But that's not so. It's mainly, but the council is probably mainly composed of, you know, the naive, the disingenuous, the stupid, morally corrupt, and because of that, I have a great number of chances to highlight what they're doing. They are, it's said that those whom the gods wish to destroy first they drive mad, and the number of issues which have come out from these people, obviously it makes people think that they are mad, and they're badly handled, so it allows me to highlight it so easily. Right, hi, Chris. Oh, going okay. I've got no...
Hyams' opposition consists almost entirely of constantly feeding stories about the council's more controversial activities to the newspapers.
As soon as I get all the papers together, there's another story.
He wages a form of skillful guerrilla warfare in the columns of the ever-receptive press, and Labour's boycott of the Gazette has only served to boost his campaign.
Many thanks. Bye.
In council meetings, Hyams doesn't bother trying to influence policy decisions. In this housing meeting, he gave a clear indication of how he sees his role. He sat on the press bench.
I might tell them all your secrets.
This kind of activity has led his opponents to accuse him of twisting the issues simply to get a headline.
David Hyams operates largely by destructive criticism of the council and to some extent by distorting the policies which are presented. We don't mind him criticising our policy, but when he simply invents things that we're supposed to have done, for example, to censor library books, just to name one small but significant example, then we do object.
A rather funny reply from Margaret Hodge.
One of Hyams' allies in the political battle with Labour is Islington South's MP George Cunningham. Having switched from Labour to the SDP, Cunningham faces an uphill struggle to hold on to what is normally a safe Labour seat, and perhaps his only chance is to discredit the local Labour Party. He feels that the SDP campaign is achieving precisely that.
There is a sense of shame because people find that they say, oh, you live in Islington, do you? And they laugh. That's where you've got that balmy council who are wasting all the money on these silly things. Now, frankly, it is funny. But it's very serious too. There's no doubt that the response that we have had in the Social Democratic Party from the public to our campaign to limit this sort of nonsense has been tremendous.
It's privately admitted by some councillors that their standing in the borough is at an all-time low. The policies on minorities, the mishandled political gestures, and the SDP's opportunist handling of the press have all contributed to the slump in their reputation. And there are now real doubts about whether the council has anything else to offer.
I think people are beginning to ask, is there anything apart from symbolic gestures? Are there any real policies? Are they, after 4 years, going to have succeeded in changing this borough for the better, for the benefit of the vast majority of people who are traditional Labour voters?
Beneath the rhetoric about red flags and Ireland, the council is beginning to tackle the bread and butter issues like housing. Islington has severe housing problems, with both privately owned and council stock increasingly falling into disrepair. The council have, as promised in the manifesto, embarked on a costly programme of modernisation. In this year alone, it's spending £5.5 million on renovating old estates. But the new council is not just trying to upgrade the actual buildings. It's also attempting to improve the quality of the whole housing service.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What we're talking about tonight is looking at a way of making the council's services better. I live in a ward where there are a lot of owner-occupiers, and I represent a ward where there are a lot of council tenants. And both the owner-occupiers and the council tenants are all aware that the council is not making a very good job of giving the services to you, the people who pay for them.
This is a public meeting about the council's new policy of decentralization. This will involve opening up a large number of offices throughout the borough where housing repair teams and social workers will be based. In this way, it's hoped that the council's services will become much more responsive to people's needs. This is potentially a very popular policy. The problem for Islington is that they've failed to project it. Only those who've attended these meetings know anything about it.
Islington's problem, then, is that these vital areas are not seen as their top priority. The council so far failed to counteract the impression that it's spending too much time on minority policies and meaningless gestures. The councillors claim that raising flags doesn't distract them from the major issues, but it certainly distracts the public with the help of the SDP and the press. There are signs that the leadership recognises this and is anxious to put a stop to the so-called gesture politics. But many Labour councillors we've spoken to believe they've not put a foot wrong, and that it's all the fault of the wicked media. But politicians ignore image and presentation of policy at their peril. The Bermondsey by-election showed the dangers of allowing a gap to open up between Labour and its traditional supporters. Islington's #1 priority must now surely be to close that gap, which is all too evident on the streets of the borough.
Don't talk to me about that lot of rubbish. They want shooting, a lot of them.
They say that they're for working class people, but they're really, you know, doing some stupid things, and they're wasting a lot of money, but at the same time they are doing some good things.
They've got nothing better to do, like having votes on Irish jokes. Terrible.
I think it's diabolical. They seem to be completely out of touch with the people in Islington.
The building should be burnt down with all that mob in it.
I don't believe everything I read, but, you know, you have to believe some of it, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you vote Labour in the elections?
I did because I always have done, but I've got, I begin to think different, put it that way. You know what I mean?